Hello, everyone. Welcome to Crafting for Profit Live. Today, we're diving into a topic that some of you might be able to relate to, working with your spouse or a partner. So running a business is already a challenge, but what happens when your business partner is also your life partner?
Joining us today are Kirk and Brittany Anton from Heat Transfer Warehouse, a dedicated couple who have mastered the art of working together while maintaining a strong professional relationship. We'll be talking about how they balance business and marriage, manage stress, and use their unique strengths to build a thriving community. If you've ever wondered how to make a business partnership work with your significant other, this is the episode for you.
So this episode was pre-recorded. We are chatting with you live on YouTube. So if you're watching the premiere of this video, you can chat with us live in the chat box. And if you're catching this later or listening on your favorite podcast network, you can still send us your questions using the form linked in the YouTube description and the podcast notes.
All right, Kirk, Brittany, you want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I want to say, I guess, kind words, Angie, about us mastering the art of working together. But Kirk with Heat Transfer Warehouse. I guess I was the visionary for Heat Transfer Warehouse, and right now, kind of jack of all trades. Depends on where everybody needs me, but obviously, still the main focus is just kind of thinking of the ideas and where we're going next. So.
Hi, and I'm Brittany Anton from Heat Transfer Warehouse as well. And I guess my specialized area of work here is currently mystery box packing, but also the completed department. So kind of like the finished product and kind of overseeing and helping a little bit with some of the marketing things. And honestly, just like what Kirk said, kind of wherever we need to be right now. So
Mystery boxes, I'm like intrigued.
oh my gosh, I don't even know why. I think this is just the most fun part of my day is packaging the mystery boxes. So it's kind of like overstock material, but it's all great material. And I just put a yarder mystery box on. So it's like $29 and like there's like hundreds of dollars of like vinyl in there because they're yards, but I don't know. I just want to see how much I can pack into a box. So if you get one, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't want to know about it. There's too much stuff in there. It is, but they are very popular.
It's fine.
So,
All right, guys. So what inspired you to start working together in the first place? And did you have any hesitations about mixing business and marriage?
Well, I'll take that one. So I feel like we've kind of always been a team. Both of us have always been kind of entrepreneurial. I've had businesses before, so has Kirk. And so it kind of just felt really natural to bring that together. I felt like we had like a missing gap, or Heat Transfer Warehouse kind of had like a missing gap of something more to offer to customers. And yeah, so that's why we decided to start working together. And it's been great.
Any hesitations or anything like that? Like you were just like, nope, we're gonna do it.
I would say ditto to that, but like also say, hey, we're crazy because we think a lot alike, and honestly, it just felt natural. We knew it was going to be a good fit, and just kind of seemed to fall together. So
I feel like that's really important because I think there's a lot of people who are like, oh, we're so different, but maybe we could work together. And I know several people who've tried this and it hasn't worked out really well because, you may be coming at things from like two completely different perspectives. So maybe just even starting out where you're like at least kind of on the same page is probably a good place to start.
Yeah, I feel like that. And actually having those disagreements, I feel like when you're working with like your team or the people that you work with every day, it's like those uncomfortable conversations are like way more uncomfortable probably than they need to be. But since it's my husband, I just feel like with somebody else, it would be more uncomfortable than with him. Cause it's like, you can kind of tell him how it is in a professional way, of course, right? But like, he'll be honest about it. And then I don't know, I think we kind of get to the bottom of things a little bit faster and it just kind of beats around the bush. So I feel like that's kind of an advantage that we have.
yeah, it is funny when we disagree in front of others on the team, and they're just like they're all pins and needles, and I'm like, this is normal, this is fine. Like we're not mad at each other.
Fighting,
All right. On that note, how do you handle disagreements in business while still keeping your personal relationship strong?
Well, I can start on that a little bit. I guess, really honestly is just be able to agree we're going to agree to disagree, that we are going to have conversations during the work day, and that doesn't cross over into the personal part, and that we just need to leave it there. Finding where that area is can be harder sometimes, but at the end of the day, we have a lot of, I guess, I won't say disagreements, but we do disagree on things we do at work. And I don't ever think about like when I go home, I'm like, oh, I got to bring this up now because we're one-on-one. that's never the case. We're always, pretty much clear the air by the time we go home and stuff like that. And, it's like nothing's heated. Nothing's personal. And that's, I think I recognize the most. So.
Yeah. And I think just communication, like we have to realize we're on the same team. Like we want the same things, right? It's not about like who's right and who's wrong necessarily, because that's usually not even what a disagreement's about. It's, just something very like silly, I guess. And then, I don't know. I don't think we've ever taken it past where we're actually upset with each other about something. So it's just that talking,
Just the mystery boxes, but
that wasn't that bad. First, I'm like, we're going to put 10 pounds of vinyl for the mystery scrap rocks. He's like, that's way too much. And I'm like, fine, 7. Whatever else I can shove in there.
So do you think, like, was it a learning curve for you to get to where you are now? Like, was it more difficult in the beginning is what I'm wondering with the disagreements?
No, I don't think it was at all. I think if anything, our biggest challenge is just leaving it at work, right? So being entrepreneurial, like I'm sure a lot of the people listening to this are, it's like your work is also your hobby and it's also your livelihood, right? Like you're kind of the one not in control, but like you're the one that can like make it work or not make it work, right? And you have to constantly be trying. And so as a result of that, a lot of our at-home conversations revolve around like, oh, we should do this, or like, wouldn't this be cool? And then just like trying to like leave that at work sometimes and just have a regular home time.
I find that happens with spouses anyway, right? Like, even though I don't work with my spouse, like at dinner time, he's like, here's what I did today. And can you give me advice on this? And I'm like, okay, here's what I did today. And here's like a roadblock I'm trying. So like, I think just being entrepreneurial in general probably bleeds over. It may be a little bit less than people who have a 9 to 5 that they just walk away.
I know. I think so too.
Yeah, I would say, the biggest thing is just like knowing like when our drive home is like important because like that's hopefully we can offload, download, get a lot of that out of the way, but also knowing like, hey, I'm just saying this and you don't need to go fix this. You're just listening as the husband or the wife.
Yep.
Okay. Like this is just what happened today. Please don't go fix this.
Mhm.
And then that helps a lot because otherwise, I'm guilty. I'll be like, I'm real. Okay. I'm going, let's do this. And she goes, no, I have this. I'm just venting right now.
Yeah.
So
That makes sense. Okay. So speaking of venting, running a business can be stressful. As we all know, I don't think there's one person who runs their own business and listens to this podcast who thinks, oh, it sure is easy running your own business. So how do you manage stress as a team?
Do you want to take that one?
I can comment the biggest thing I think is that recognizing that there's different things going on that can cause stress for each of us that is different. And so she could be like, her week is like, this is great. I feel good. I'm weak. I'm like, I'm maxed going on. And because we don't interact, 24/7, knowing that, hey, there is something out there that could be a stressor for you and say, okay, let me listen. Let's let it go so we can do that. And maybe we just have to have a conversation and say, okay, we got to talk about this because we can find a solution. And be in that. And it's hard. I mean, you're going to bring it home. And the thing is just knowing like, hey, let's just shut it off tonight. And let's just be like normal, let's turn the Netflix on and watch that for an hour so we can do something different. But you just find the ways and eventually also finding time to just be a couple. And so we make sure that we are like, hey, we're also a couple. We're here for another reason. So
Exactly. And keeping it a little bit funny, try to keep it lighthearted, I guess, right?
One of the things that the business coach that both Angie and I have used, one of her things that she talks about is human first, where she and her husband always say like, you can't really do anything in business or, anything beyond if you're not like taking care of the human part of you first. So it's like, okay, am I, if you're super stressed, like what can you do to just like, okay, I need to eat. I need to watch Netflix. I need to spend time with my spouse. I need to spend time with my kids, whatever it is. Like you have to take care of the human part first before you can really make gains in the other parts. And I think that what you're saying there makes a lot of sense. It's like, okay, we are together all the time. This has to be human first time, like not business first time. And I really like that.
I like that too.
yeah, I would say it's
Good.
Pilates. We do Pilates together. So we're 3-4 days a week we do that. And I guess that's also our human time of like relieving stress and just doing our thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was just going to say, you need a stress reliever that you do together. So yours is Pilates.
Yeah.
That would be
So,
more stressful for me. I feel like, what am I doing?
All right. So you're a couple in business. How do you ensure that both of you feel heard and valued when making business decisions?
We understand that we're not always going to see eye to eye on things, and neither of us are afraid to disagree with each other, or like just have like a different opinion about things, even if it's not argumentative, and just trying to like be respectful of everybody's opinions, right? Like maybe this is my truth and maybe that's his truth, and that's okay. We don't have to, agree on it all the time, and most of the time he makes the best decisions, the big ones. So I'm usually cool with just, okay, that sounds good. I'm pretty agreeable, but I think maybe we both are together.
yeah, I would say pretty agreeable, but also we just like kind of have our areas that we kind of notched out. And it's like, if she makes a decision and I may not like it or thinking about it, and a lot of the times I just don't know or understand it. Um, I just have to be, like, okay, a decision was made, it's done, it's over with. And then obviously I always know it's in the best interest of us and the
Mhm.
company and in our team. So, and that's always, I have to remember that and just say, okay, it was done. No, later, maybe I can say, hey, I don't like this, or I think let's have a discussion about it, but it's never publicly done that way. And I think that's the best but also just respecting her decisions. They're done. And then we know it's in the interest of the team and us.
And
So
we also both, I think, understand that we're going to make bad decisions. We're going to make wrong decisions, and just like not holding that against ourselves or each other or even other members of our team, right? We try to have like an environment where like it's okay to fail. Like, don't be afraid to take risks, right? So I think that we truly believe that. And that kind of helps a little bit too.
We always talk about making the best decision with what you know at the time. And what you know later totally changes that decision, but you can't, change the past. So definitely making that decision. And I like how you said kind of both of you developed your own expertise or your own lanes, and you can kind of make decisions in those lanes. And I could see that happening as a couple, that you both kind of develop your own expertise in the business or a place you feel comfortable, and you could make your own decisions within those.
I agree.
Yeah, some of the best marriage advice I ever got was always assume the best intent, right, of your partner. And obviously, this doesn't work for every marriage if they have not had your best intent or your best intent in mind at the time. But generally, this has worked out really well for me in my marriage. Like, I know my husband's not out there like making decisions or doing things to intentionally hurt me, right? So I know that even if he does something that I'm like, why would you do that? Like, it's not because he had ill intent. It's because he thought it was the best decision to make at the time, which I think works really well in business either. Like if you're trying to build a business, you have the same intent. You want to build this business, right? And so, Kirk, you might not agree with Brittany's choice, but her intent is to grow the business. It's not like her intent is to like make Kirk mad with this decision, right? And so I feel like both of you working together like that, assuming that you're doing the best you can in the business is just a really great place to start.
And those mystery boxes, I mean, that it was a good decision, Brittany. It was a good decision.
This decision, they sold out last time and we had a little wait list for them. So I'm super excited when the orders come in. I know it sounds so silly, but I just get so excited. Those are my favorite orders because I like hand pack everyone. I do have help, but like I insist on doing it myself.
It does sound like a fun thing to pack up where you're just like, you
It,
feel like a
it,
fairy godmother or something.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like, and you get this, and you get this, and you get this.
You're like Oprah.
It's like Oprah. You're like Oprah, and you get glitter, and you get glitter.
Exactly. There were some of the glitter puff scraps in the mystery box or the mystery scrap box that I did today. So
So now it's time for our commercial break, and we're going to talk about glitter puff.
Hey.
All right, so this episode of Crafting for Profit Live is brought to you by Heat Transfer Warehouse, and they are your go-to supplier for all your HTV vinyl sublimation needs. So whether you're making t-shirts, tumblers, or custom gifts, they do have everything you need to bring your designs to life.
And so if you love texture and sparkle, you want to add all these things to your heat transfer products, you have to check out their brand new Glitter Puff, which is glittery and puffy, as the name would suggest. It's so fun and perfect for making your design stand out.
So I actually ordered some because it is brand new. So I do want to say it's a brand new product for you all, and I'm super excited about it. I did order some. It should be here like today or tomorrow. Also, if you don't know, Heat Transfer Warehouse has super fast shipping. I was not expecting this until next week. It's been super fast. So it should be here today or tomorrow. And I am super excited to try this product out. I mean, anything puff is super popular right now, and you add glitter on top of that. And I'm just excited about it. So stay tuned to my YouTube channel for a full video with the glitter puff.
I'm really excited about it as well. You guys always have some of the coolest stuff. I feel like I see stuff at Heat Transfer Warehouse before I see it other places, which is always exciting. For those of you who don't know Heat Transfer Warehouse, Angie and I have worked with them for years. We love them. They are a great company full of great people, and we highly recommend them as a place for all of your machine crafting needs. So we have a link to that glitter puff down in the description below. It is link.craftingcamps.com/glitterpuff. And you can go ahead and get it there. If you are listening on the podcast, we've linked it in the show notes. All right, so let's get back to our questions. So how do you make sure your personal relationship doesn't get overshadowed by the demands of running the business together? We've talked about this a little bit, but are there other ways that you just make sure that you are like Kirk and Brittany as well as Heat Transfer Warehouse, and how you kind of keep those things sort of separate?
I think it's just, honestly, we just have to try. Otherwise, if we don't try to keep it separate, then it doesn't become separate. So that's something that we've worked on, or especially I've been working on, like being more mindful of, is like, the work-life balance, which is a constant effort. At least for me, it is. So yeah, that is what we do, is we just say, no, we're not talking about that anymore. We do take the time to watch Netflix. We go to Pilates class, which is impossible to talk about anything there. It'd be weird besides and super quiet, except for the instructor. So we kind of just do that stuff, or just make it a point to do date night.
Yeah, I would say date night's super important. And then obviously, since we do run a business together, vacations can be mingled in with other things. Just like we were out in Charlotte and we had to have a meeting, and we tied one of those days into it. But also after that point, we're like, okay, this is the next 2 days are for us, and we're just going to do this and this and this. And we honestly really didn't really talk about business at all until the day we came back. Then we're like, okay, it's work mode, it's flying, let's just go. But just being very intentional is important. And then just say, we're going out tonight, this is our date, let's do this. And so we make sure that there is a personal life.
I feel like for any small business owner, that work-life balance gets tricky, no matter if you work with your spouse or you're just by yourself. It's just forcing yourself to take that time away from work, especially when you are starting out a small business and trying to grow that business. It can kind of take over your life. So I feel like it's important to just make sure you have time for yourself, time for you and your spouse.
And I think often you have to like schedule it in, because if you don't, like you said, it's just not going to happen, because you're running a business for yourself. Your brain really can just, be 100% targeted on the business. And so if you don't like actually schedule in downtime, spouse time, personal time, often you just don't get it. So I think it's really important to actually write that down on the calendar sometimes if you're not very good at it.
And you mentioned vacations, and I bet that's hard with both of you working for the business because you're both out. So that's like 2 people away.
Oh my gosh. Especially last week. You have no idea. You had somebody kind of just, got a lot of team members, and people can be a little dramatic. So somebody decided they just didn't want to work anymore, and they left.
That's very,
it's just one of those things. But so we kind of like had all hands on deck, kind of like, working, but it was right before we left. So it was just a little bit extra stressful. But we did the best thing that we could as far as being in communication with the team and trying to help them out to see what they needed. Just saying like, hey, like, we're sorry, but this is going to happen. It's only 2 days, so.
Yeah, it's tough. It is tough. And it is obviously because 2 key players are away because they're so actively involved.
Mm-hmm.
We really have to be intentional, but also we kind of also say, okay, let's look at our stuff in the morning. Then we go off for the day, do our thing. And then like, for me, I just tell people like, if you need me to respond, please just text me instead of like through Slack and everything else, because I'm trying not to be in there.
Yeah.
And that way, if there's a situation they feel they need to reach out, they call me, I can handle it. And then I don't have to like go into the other stuff, because as soon as I start digging around in Slack and I see all these messages, I'm like, oh my God.
I think it's important to like create a culture too of like knowing what's important, like to be able to text about, because you're like, if you have an employee and they're just like, hey boss, what's up? And you're like, okay, I'm on vacation.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. The team's really good though. They're pretty good. They'll wait until the last whatever, or if they just something comes up needing clarification, they usually they're good about it, and they know
Mhm.
they're pretty respectful of our time.
Right. So now we have a good question, I feel like. So, what's one thing you've learned about each other through working together that you might not have known otherwise?
So I've learned that Kirk is actually really calm and steady when under pressure. I have a tendency to kind of just be like a little frantic, not trying to be, but like, you're just like, you get a little stressed out and then I'm doing a million things, but actually nothing's getting done at all. But I think that he's just like really calm, very steady, and kind of just brings like that franticness in me, like just kind of like grounded. So,
I definitely have learned, like, when she's in the zone, don't go up to her and just talk to her or try to have any other question. It's like, nope, just let her be. And so also identifying those times when she's in the zone, and then like, okay, because I'm like impatient, I should have an answer within seconds. But then also I'll walk over to her and I'm like, no, this could wait. This can wait, and then I'll just schedule it accordingly because she kind of gets in the zone and starts working on something, and she just wants to be getting it done. And I know I have to respect that time. And sometimes I'm a pest. I will admit that. So
he's not a pest, and I feel so bad that I make him feel that way. I know I probably do that to other team members too. I'm like, if I'm sitting here working and like I'm getting, like in the zone, like don't come and ask me what I did over the weekend. Like now's not the time. I don't want to talk to you about that. And I don't want to feel bad for like, maybe like coming off a little bit irritated, but I am.
You guys have an open plan office. Angie and I have both
yeah.
been there. So it's not like you can just shut the door. You can't. You guys have all your computers and everything in the central location. So it does become a little bit harder to know when or when not to bother somebody because you can't just hang up like a do not disturb sign on the door.
But we learn a lot about each other, just work wise that way. But we could go off on our own and do our own thing, but we don't. We choose to still be out there in front of everybody and with everybody. So, it's a choice that way too.
Yeah.
All right. So what's the biggest reward of running a business as a couple and what keeps you going?
Well, I can start. I would say, well, we get to drive to work together. So there's one. We get to bring our dogs with. So there's two. I think obviously it's like we get to spend our day together, I guess, and we get to spend, almost 24/7. And I feel that actually is a privilege.
Mhm.
I don't regret the fact that, that I am with Brittany that much time. My value is like, I get to do that. Not I have to do, I get to do that. And I think that's fantastic. And, um, you know, that's a great benefit. And if it works for everybody, it's awesome. But I think it's like, I wake up in the morning, I'm like, I get to go to work with Brittany, and we may be not necessarily, she might be slower than me, or I might be slower in the morning, and don't let that, get us all squabbled or mad. But, we get to ride to work together. We get to, basically do everything, but it is a privilege, and I think it's great. So,
Yeah. And I think keeping going too is like, to follow up on that part of the question. I feel like it sounds so cheesy, but it's like, okay, every entrepreneur, every small business owner, it's like, like you're not ever in control, right? But you feel like you're carving out your way. But I think that since we get to do that together, it just like makes it feel like a little bit more special. I don't know.
yeah.
I've done it both ways. It just feels like teamwork. I don't know. It sounds really cheesy, but
I would say you're not alone. And
yeah,
that's the
yeah,
biggest thing, because entrepreneurship can be very lonely. And I think at least nobody around us in our neighborhood understands what we go through.
Yeah.
So at least we have something to communicate with. Like, hey, we get what we went through today.
Mhm.
So
Honestly, that's my favorite reason that Angie is around. Because she understands what I'm going through in my business. She's like my work spouse, even though we're running separate businesses and then our little business together. But it's sort of true. Like somebody who understands what you're going through is so important because it can be so lonely. And just having somebody to bounce ideas off of or to vent to, talk business decisions through, all of that is really important. And I know that our audience has talked about like, how do I find people like that? And of course, maybe or maybe not, it's your spouse. That's what this episode is about. But, making friends within the crafting community, making friends at craft fairs, business events, those sorts of things. Just having other people in your court, I think, is really important.
Yeah,
definitely.
community is so important. And it's almost like you all have a built in community with the two of you, which is amazing. So you get that person all the time that understands, like you said, like what you do. And I do agree with you. This whole entire business, like working for yourself, can be very, very isolating. So if you're listening to this and you're like, my spouse might want to work with me, think about the community aspect and how that you can support each other as well. Not just that maybe we'll have disagreements. Yes, you might have disagreements, but you might also find that ultimate support system within your spouse. All right, next question. What advice would you give to other couples, speaking of that, who are considering starting a business together?
I would say just do it. But also just be patient, right? Like it's going to be a learning curve. Like it's going to be a learning curve, and also go into it just like being like, don't go into it thinking like, okay, like I'm going to be the boss or something like that, right? Like just go into it thinking like this is a partnership, right? And it doesn't matter if one person's roles are more important, because there are going to be those, right? But just don't try to make it a power struggle. Just try to go into it as like an equal partnership, like a spousal partnership, right? Like you're a married partner, not like business partner as much, right? Like you're both there to look out for each other. You guys have the same goal. My strengths I know are much different than Kirk's strengths. He has a lot more responsibility and a lot bigger roles within the company than I do, but I do know that my role is important. And I also know that I can't do his roles. I don't really want to do some of those things, but I have a lot of respect for the fact that he can. And so just, I think knowing that, you know,
Well, I would say just don't do it. No, just kidding. I'm like, it's like, I think, it can be super, super rewarding. I think going in, super communication, really communicate, and possibly even just have that spot where you guys can just debrief each other is really key, but also outlining like kind of what the roles are and being able to like, you can't overrule each other. Okay. You can't have that because somebody could like, well, I didn't like the decision Kirk made, so I'll go to Brittany. But we have really kind of defined our roles. And like, she's like also my interpreter for when people are like, what did he actually say? What does he actually mean? But I think going into that, knowing like we kind of have our clear defined like roles, we both know equally that it's important in what we do. But then we communicate about it, and that's really the most important thing is communicate. And if it doesn't work, don't let it ruin your marriage. Because at the end of the day, 2-3 years from now, we could be like, you know what, this, how we have it going now doesn't work. And now I go off and do this. And I'm not going to be like, okay, that's it. It's, you got to recognize work is work, family is family. And yes, it does come home, no doubt about it. But just letting it know like, hey, I don't have to let it ruin it. And then say you're 2 years on the road and it doesn't work. That's okay. And you can still have a great marriage and basically move on and figure things out. So
That's such good advice. I think about the people that I've known who have worked together and failed at it. A lot of times it's been people in the blogging sphere who the wife ends up making a lot of money through blogging, which doesn't happen as often now as it did a couple of years ago. But I mean, so many of my friends, quote, retired their husbands to work for them. So their husband quit corporate America and came to work for their blog. And the things that didn't work was they didn't necessarily bring their husbands on in a capacity that played to their strengths. So it'd be like, okay, I'm just going to dump all the things I don't want to do on my husband, right? So it's like, okay, hon, you're now in charge of accounting and taxes. I don't like social media, so you're now my Facebook person. I also need you to cook every night. Just things that weren't necessarily dividing their skills very well. So I think what you've done is divided your skills, to cover the parts of the business that you want to cover. Whereas if you just bring somebody on to like do your grunt work, okay, you're just the shipping guy now, or, you're in charge of Facebook ads, even though you know nothing about it, whatever it is. I think it's being much more intentional about giving your spouse the things that he or she might really be good at and excel at, so that you guys can thrive versus one person feeling really resentful that they're doing all the things that the other person didn't want to do.
And also he is a fantastic cook. He does all of the good.
and that was
Angie and I can to that. We've been to your house.
It's like, we actually know that.
He's like, no, what are you doing?
It's probably the only area we have disagreement. I kick her out of. I'm like, no, just get out. Like, just go sit down, drink wine.
I'm great
that's
at
fine.
that. I don't mind cleaning.
All right. So Kirk, Brittany, we really appreciate you taking your time out today, sharing your insights and experiences with us. It has been amazing. So thank you so much for joining. And I was going to mention, you were talking about couple time. Do you always do the wind down Wednesdays together?
We have, except on a rare occasion. I
Yeah.
think it's hasn't, but
Like maybe one or two, I think.
Okay. So Heat Transfer Warehouse on their YouTube channel has like wind down Wednesdays where they wine down and do some crafting together. So I thought that would be a good plug for that, to join them and just kind of watch them as a couple.
Yeah.
we're still trying to get the sponsorship by Vodabox,
Yeah.
and it hasn't happened yet. So
No.
if you got any tips on how to get us at least one Vodabox, that would be great. So
Yeah, you need that box wine sponsor.
I know, I think we're very successful. So
All right. So thank you, Kirk and Brittany, for joining us. And remember, check out that glitter puff that they have now. I really think y'all like it. It's link.craftingcamps.com/glitter puff. And of course, I mean, we talked about the mystery boxes enough. You might as well order a mystery box as well.
Yeah, they just went long today.
they're back up.
Actually, I'm going to go order one now, probably, because that sounds like so much fun. So for those of you watching or listening, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you work with your partner, or is it something that you're thinking about doing? Drop your questions, your experiences down in the comments. Send us a message on Instagram or post on our Instagram channel, which is @craftingcamps. We would love to hear your experience.
And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode. Maybe you have someone and you think they should work with their spouse, or they already do. Be sure to text this episode to them. And as always, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you at the next episode.